Today's Patreon shoutout goes to Z. Fangorn versus Sauron, Kozilek and Esika. That's a pretty slow one, so we'll have to try a different hand. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get into some ramp really, because it's a high curve on this deck, thanks to it being tree folk. Tree folk tend to be 5 to 6 mana plus, so we'll go down a card. Alright, we've actually got some ramp, and the Realm Breaker or Realm Walker can hopefully get us into some card advantage here, so we'll keep. And the Everbark Shaman can go into the library because I don't think we're going to be seeing tree folk in the bin quickly enough for that. Alright, draw into our 4th land, so we're going to have at least 5 by turn 4. Is it Signet from the Grixis player as the first spell of the game? Alright, and there's a great henge for us, which we'll hopefully be able to get down reasonably quickly so that we can start drawing some cards. But it is, of course, the Rampant Growth this turn. Alright, and now drawing into Kodama's Reach, so I think we're fine to go for the Kodama's Reach here. Probably I should have waited on playing the land there because our opponents don't know what's in our hand. Now they'll know that we are going to definitely play a forest next turn, but like I said, don't think it matters this early in the game. Rhystic Study from Esika, so maybe is an Enchantress deck. Warden of Geometrics being played into that, so this is an Eldrazi tribal deck, maybe preparing for the precon to come out in. But yeah, Warden of Geometries coming into play, and Rhystic Study being allowed to draw a card. And then Dimir's Signet into the Rhystic Study as well, and paying for it as he should. And then Talisman of Indulgence, further ramp for the Grixis player, going down to 5 cards in hand and keeping the Esika at 7 cards. Alright, so now we see the Battle Wand Oak, which allows us to buff our creatures, which is particularly good with the Great Henge, because a lot of the tree folk have high toughness and low power. So we could go for the Orchard Warden here, but we won't be able to play into the Rhystic Study, so yeah, maybe start trying to look at the top card of our library with the Realm Walker, and then we can plan our turns out a little bit better. And there we see a Genesis Wave on top, which I don't think we're anywhere near at the moment. Don't have a means of shuffling our library though, so we just pass at that. Chromatic Lantern for the 5 colour player to fix those colours. And now seeing a Skyclave Relic from the Kozilek player, so we'll not tap for colourless, which can be relevant in a colourless deck. Obviously, you can kick this to get more mana though, which is why it's in here. Did pay the tax on Rhystic Study. And we see the first Temptation of the Ring, and Nazgul comes in for Sauron. And we see another Nazgul after that, so 3 cards in this player's hand, but they will be able to start looting in the next turn, because the ring is leveled up to level 2. Okay. A Swords to Plowshares onto the Nazgul from the 5 colour player. That is a really weird Swords to Plowshares. I'm not sure what threat they think the Nazgul's going to be. And they could have done that after the Temptation of the Ring, because now they still have a Ring Bearer. So if they had to get rid of a Nazgul, then they should have waited for all this to resolve first and then get rid of it. Okay, a Cavern of Souls available to us now, so I think it's going to take too much setting up to go for the Battle Wand Oak. We don't have any small tree folk to go after. Maybe we'll get into one off the top of the library. But we'd have to go for the Battle Wand Oak, play a land, play a tree folk, and then hope that we've got enough mana left for the henge. It's probably best just going for the Orchard Warden here, and then paying for the Great Henge. That's going to be 5 mana next turn, which we can afford with the tax, so yeah, we'll just do that. We could afford the Great Henge now, but again, I don't want to play into the Rhystic Study and give my opponent a card. And then let's swing in at this 5 colour player, because I'm always worried about what the Prismatic Bridge is going to do, assuming it is a Prismatic Bridge deck. Alright, seeing a legendary creature here, that is Snapdax. I do hate that we've got different versions of the same Magic the Gathering cards. And now seeing from the Eldrazi player, it's Bane of Balaged this time, which pretty much has annihilated 2. Sauron the Dark Lord is the... yeah, that's the first commander we see of the game. And yeah, they're allowing Rhystic Study to keep drawing here, which means this player wants to hold up that 3 mana. Alright, and another land on top of our library, unfortunately, so... let's see here, Great Henge is 5 mana. Pay the tax, it's 6, would leave us with a couple of mana. I mean, are we holding ourselves back at this point just because we're the only one paying for the Rhystic Study? Alright, let's go for Cavern of Souls, name Tree Folk. And yeah, we can give our opponent 1 card. I think we owe our opponent a card after our other opponents have been doing it. Amass Orcs from the Sauron. And we're seeing a pause from the Grixis player, so there might be some means of counter magic here. I hope not, because the Great Henge is our only mean of card advantage at the moment, and that is allowed down, so we'll tap it straight away so that we can make use of the mana before I forget. So an uncounterable tree folk here, and we'll draw into that forest, and I am going to pay the tax here on that Rhystic Study. It's not likely that we're going to be able to do anything with that 2 mana. And still seeing that pause on the Grixis player, so maybe it's a Chaos Warp or something like that. Alright, I was getting ready to get annoyed about seeing the Chaos Warp onto the Great Henge there when we've seen Rhystic Study drawing cards left, right and centre. Luckily, our creature was allowed down, so we'll get at least 1 card further into our library, clear away that forest. Alright, still no Tree Folk. That is Renin 7, the only Planeswalker in the deck. Obviously makes Planeswalkers. The Orchard Warden going to gain us some life here. And as much as I'd like to swing in over here, there is a 3/5 double striker in the way, so nothing we can do about that. There's no decent attacks here, so we just have to hold back. And now we see another one. What's this one? A Vadrok Apex of Thunder. That is being mutated onto the Snapdax. So maybe a mutate deck? Alright, now maybe seeing why the Swords to Plowshares was used so liberally before. They'll get to flash it back here and deal 4 damage to something, which will likely kill something off, going after our Battle Wand Oak. I'd rather that than the Realm Walker going down. Alright, and the swords being pointed at, the Bane of Balaged, so not wanting to sacrifice anything, we'll assume that the 5 colour player was going to get annihilated there. And after that, ending the turn with a Commander Sphere. Now seeing Swiftfoot Boots from the Eldrazi player help protect from some of that removal that Esika's throwing around. And again, not paying for the damn Rhystic Study. I think I'm just going to give up on it myself at this point. Alright, and someone is still running a Darksteel Plate over here. If you're still running this card, get yourself a Mithril Coat. I mean, our opponent doesn't have his commander in play here. But again, deciding to get down Darksteel Plate into a Rhystic Study when you can't equip it here. Alright, and now seeing Soul Shatter from the Grixis player, which costs 3 mana, so once again, the Rhystic Study is not going to be paid for here. Probably good that trading out that for 2 mutate creatures here. I'll let him off. And now we see 1 ring to rule them all, so each player milling a card equal to the ring bearer's power, and we're going to get all our creatures destroyed next turn, so I was going to go after the Genesis Wave, but alright, so see what we milled here. That was Renin 7, Great Oak, Guardian, Root Grapple, so finally getting some Tree Folk off the top that we could have cast. Concordant Crossroads, a land, Quick Beam, Upstart, and Awaken the Woods. Now have on top a Bosk Banneret. So maybe we just go for our commander then. There's not much point going for Genesis Wave if everything's just going to get blown up by the Saga. I think our opponent didn't pay for the Rhystic Study there either. Alright, that's a scary one. All will be one. Put this in a deck recently, but I can't remember which deck it was, and we never got to play it. Might have been my Sauron deck, actually. And now swinging in, the commander is the ring bearer, so going to loot, getting rid of a land. And yeah, the Sauron goes into the left, and this goes in at the Eldrazi. Alright, let's see here. Revealing a Wicker Buff Elder, which could get rid of this. Oh, actually, that's a Nombo, isn't it, with the Great Henge? It'll actually enter with no counters at all, so... yeah, didn't think of that, apparently. Yeah, the Rhystic Study plays at 9 cards in hand here. We could play Bosk Banneret just to draw more cards with the Great Henge, dig further into our library. There's no guarantee that we'll keep the Great Henge. I definitely want to go for the commander here. So, do we pay for the Rhystic Study? A plus counter is put on something thanks to Amass. So all will be one, going to deal damage to something. And that's going to deal the damage to us. Don't think I am going to pay the Rhystic Study. It's stupid for me to be the only one that's paying it, so all I'm doing is putting myself further behind, really. Which can work to your benefit. If your opponents are steamrolling ahead, then they use all their removal on each other. But we haven't done too much of anything this game, so let's try and get something going. We need to be careful which creatures we play into the Saga, of course. Alright, there's another Tree Folk, Colonian Twingrove. but all that's ultimately going to do is get wiped out next turn. Yeah, so maybe we just cast the Bosque Banneret here. Like I said, it's going to get wiped out, but it gets us a card deeper into our library. Once the Realm Breaker goes down, we're not going to be able to play things off the top, so we have to be drawing into these cards, really. So once again, the All Will Be One is going to be targeting us. And I don't think there's going to be... there's not going to be a small creature on top that we'll be able to cast, but we can float the mana with our commander in place, so not going to pay for Rhystic Study. His mana's not too incredible at the moment, so drawing into all those cards isn't as detrimental as it might be, but we should be doing our best to pay into that tax. Alright, now revealing an enchantment on top. Plus counter on a creature you control, then if it has toughness 6 or greater, it turns into a tree folk that gives our stuff vigilance. So let's go to the left with the Realm Walker and pass the turn at that. Not worthy that the Orc Army is a 9/9, going to be even bigger than that. And we did get the 2 floating green mana from that attacking in. I'll just float this other mana now because I'm going to forget by the time my turn rolls around again. I do sometimes kind of switch off between players' turns. Sol Ring being cast into the Sauron, once again triggering All Will Be One. The enchantment continuing to be pointed at us because we are north of our starting life total. Alright, and now a Blasphemous Act. I was hoping that we were going to keep our Fangorn in play, but apparently not. As long as we keep our Great Henge in play, I'm hoping that we'll still be able to keep playing this game. Alright, and after the Wrath, finally seeing the Prismatic Bridge. And not done there, that is a Goldbug Scrappy Scout. A Thought-Knot Seer for the Eldrazi player, and looks like he's paying into the Rhystic Study tax this time. And targeting the 5-colour player with this. Are we supposed to? Is it reveal? Target opponent reveals their hand, yes, so there is an Illuna, a Luminous Broodmoth, Optimus Prime, a Rick, and Wheel of Fortune. And it was the Illuna that was chosen there, so exiling that from hand. And then throwing the Swiftfoot Boots on there, and yep, swinging in towards the Prismatic Omen. Surprisingly, haven't been able to deal too much damage to this player. Alright, so a counter being put on the Saga, and that again is being pointed at us. All non-legendary creatures destroyed. Yeah, it's funny that they played the Blasphemous Act when there was a Wrath coming from here anyway, but yeah, got rid of 2 commanders I suppose. Now the Thought-Knot Seer, is that being pointed at us? Yeah, we drew into the enchantment from the Thought-Knot Seer. And now Rise of the Dark Realms from the Grixis player, paying into the Rhystic Study tax as well. So that's pretty much made my mind up for me. I think we're going to have to tap out into the Genesis Wave next turn and actually try to do something this game. Yeah, that's a lot of creatures in the bin, including a few Eldrazi. There's an Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Lord of the Nazgul's a really good one. Orcish Bowmasters. Going to drain us with the Grey Merchant as well. If they get a copy of the Wandering Archaic, do they get X into that? Or is X 0? Alright, so there's a copy being made by this. A bunch of life going to be gained by the Orchard Warden. Quick Beam Upstart will give up to 2 creatures, +2/+2 and trample until the end of the turn. Don't think they're going to be able to get haste. Wow, really? And these 2 scoop to that? Okay, that's amazing. If this player had held on to his Blasphemous Act, then he wouldn't have had to scoop there, and there's a Wheel of Fortune in his hand that he could have had us all draw with and maybe able to do something about this. Right. Alright, well I've only got a finite amount of time to put into games that hardly anyone's going to watch anyway, so apologies if you've seen this one, but I clearly ran out of time. Yeah, going to have to ban these other 2 players for that. Alright, well I think when you copy spells on the stack that have an X cost, then that Wandering Archaic would have made copies, or a copy of the spell, and copied the X cost as well, so yeah, at least we don't have to hold back on the Genesis Wave now, but this is just a mere crappy Tree Folk deck. I did ask for a power level 5 game here, but I think it's been a bit more strong than I would have hoped for, unfortunately. Anyway, we'll take some damage from the Orcish Bowmasters and from the Grey Merchant as well. A couple of Nazgul coming into play, so the ring is going to be fully levelled up here as well. And that'll be some more plus counters, so going to trigger the All Will Be One. Alright, so going to be knocked down to south of 20 on our life total by the All Will Be One. Obviously that's going to be much more potent now that we're the only player in the game here. So down to 15 we go. Not seeing any haste from our opponent yet, thankfully. I highly doubt we're going to be doing anything this game now. Alright, so let's see here. That is a leaf-crowned elder, which is going to be way too slow, so drop a land. Oh, and I've clearly missed something. I did say that I sometimes switch off between turns when there's lots of things on the stack like that. Oh, Genesis Wave has been exiled from hand, so obviously I've missed something there. Alright, well, that was our one shot of actually doing anything this game, so let's go for the Colonian Twin Grove. And that triggers the Great Henge. It triggers and makes a copy of itself as well. So we get a couple of 9/9s for 6 mana. Alright, there's a Sol Ring, allows us to keep going. Orcish Bowmasters, that's another card that we've drawn into, so that will trigger. And that's likely, yep, going to be a damage onto us, and we'll continue to trigger All Will Be One. Glad to see some usage of this card. I haven't been able to show it on the channel because of the decks I've put it in. I haven't been able to draw into it, unfortunately. But yeah, All Will Be One in the right deck is a really good one. Goes really well in these Amass decks. So let's throw down the Sol Ring. And I suppose it might as well just be the Leaf-Crowned Elder. We'll just play it out for the fun of it. I imagine our opponent's got us next turn. Alright, just draw into another land. And yeah, that's all we can do here, so pass the turn. Alright, and that is the third counter on the Saga. Each opponent loses 1 life for each creature in that player's graveyard. That's funny when they've got Mass Reanimation in the deck. So I don't think we'll lose any mana to that. Do lose mana to All Will Be One, of course. So all they really have to do is swing in here. I suppose they could play around Arachnogenesis or something like that, but not likely to see that in a Tree Folk deck, surely. Sauron back into play again. So the Nazgul getting a bunch of plus counters. They can discard their hand and draw 4 from the Sauron if they want to. And we'll see if we go down to the All Will Be One this game. Alright, so we're on 7 life here, got a bunch of triggers on the stack. I think they're all just 1 damage apiece though. Although we do have more Nazgul to go yet. So our opponent should get us with All Will Be One. Alright, and there we go. Finally seeing some action from All Will Be One and managed to go down to it here. So hopefully you all enjoyed the game. See you in the next one. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.